And welcome back in another edition of the Stripe Show podcast. I'm your host, Travis Fulton. Thank you for making us part of your day. Big golf weekend, big sports weekend all across the country. I hope your team's won. I hope your team is represented in the Super Bowl right down the road from here in Tampa Bay. Kansas City Chiefs, they're back taking on Tom Brady, his 10th appearance in the Super Bowl. That is hard to wrap your mind around. And I thought I'd ask my good friend to come in and break it all down for us, Gary Williams. Gary, you know, it's late on Sunday, okay, and some things never change. Tom Brady gets it done and wins another big game, and Tony Finau crumbles like a folding table at a pre-funk at a Bills Mafia party. My goodness, what'd you make of Sunday?
Well, I mean, you summed it up expertly. I thought it was, it's why we love sports. I mean, sports is, for all the proliferation of reality television, you can cast all that stuff aside. And, you know, my wife watches The Bachelor. Reality television is sports at the highest level. Mm-hmm. And whether it is, you know, amateurs or whether it is the best in the world at the professional level, it's human drama of athletic competition. And that is what Sunday was. I didn't have a team per se. I'm a Giant fan, as you know. Right. But I, you know, the Brady thing is beyond extraordinary. It's absurd that this guy at 43, there is no, you look at him, the optics, and you're somebody who's got a trained eye to look at people, try to, you know, hit a golf ball as best they can. His mechanics are just like they were 15, 20 years ago. For him to switch leagues, go to Lambeau, and be the guy leading a team to play their first Super Bowl in their home stadium is beyond ludicrous.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. And I saw now that Tom Brady has as many NFC championships as Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees, but not Russell Wilson. He's got 2, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, it is. It's crazy to watch. And you just got the feeling that, you know, much like Finau, which we'll get to, like you just kind of kept waiting. It's going to happen. And then, you know, with Brady, it's going to happen. Sure enough, there he is in the winner's circle. Another guy that won was Siwoo Kim, his 3rd now on the PGA Tour. I got to tell you, I was really impressed with the composure that this guy showed. I mean, here's Patrick Cantlay throwing the book at him, right? And I know you've been out there, La Quinta. You come down that stretch, and the wind wasn't up, but 16 he birdies. That's a good. You got to birdie that hole. Yep. 17, you know, it's an Allen Green, 155 yards, little wind. Hits a shot in there, makes a huge putt, and 18 is a Pete Dye special. I mean, it is intimidating as all get out. He just smokes it down the middle, hits it 15 feet past, 2-putt. Thank you very much for my 3rd win. Pretty impressive stuff from Siwoo.
Yeah, it was. You know, 18. You know, there's a handful of holes on the PGA Tour that end with a similar look. Houston, the old Houston, not where they're at now in Municipal Park there, but the old Houston, obviously TPC Sawgrass, where Siwoo Kim has won with that water off the right. And what's interesting about this tournament is that, you know, the obligation to make birdies, that there's stress that comes with knowing that if you make a rash of pars, you're losing a half to 3/4 of a shot. And there's Cantlay, who goes out there and boat races everybody. Michael Thompson is another guy who was blitzing the golf course early on. If you're in one of those last groups, you may be leading to start the day, but you may be 3 back by the time you tee off. I thought what he did for somebody who is now only won for the 3rd time, but I say that only to qualify my point that he hasn't really contended a ton late. Mm-hmm. He only had 1 top 10 all of last season. But I will say this, take anybody from wherever they are in the world and put them on the other side of the world, having to learn a language at a teenage year, and tell me how quickly you're going to acclimate yourself. He's 25 years of age. He's already won 3 times. And I'll lean on you with respect to the golf swing. To me, it looks awfully good.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the top 10. It was 3rd at the Wyndham. He was 13th at the PGA the week before that. You know, and then he's really played some pretty decent golf here since the wraparound season started. Again, yeah, let's talk about his golf swing. You know, it feels like Siwoo's been around for 15 years, doesn't it? I mean, it just feels like he's 25 years old. I think he made it through Q school, to your point, at the same venue when he was 17.
Right. 17 years old.
That's amazing.
It reminds me, you know, you mentioned about him being around a long time. You know, Kevin Na, I played with Kevin Na when he was a teenager.
Okay.
He was from Rancho Cucamonga, California. I played with him at the Monday Pro-Am at the Wells Fargo, the second year of that event in Charlotte. And he was just a bashful teenager. Sean O'Hare, same thing. Young guy. When he was out there for 10 years, you felt like you've been out there for 20 years. It's elusive to win if you're the best player week in and week out. But somebody like him, to have 3 wins at 25, and you start looking at that short list right now, they're not many.
No.
And he's now on that list.
Yeah, you know, you brought up the players, and I want to talk about his game. It was 2017. He won the Players, which of course is a Pete Dye design, and he was working with Sean Foley at the time, I can recall. And now here at the American Express, and he has been for the last 18 months. He's been working with Claude Harmon III, of course, the son of Butch Harmon. And there's some notable improvement here, and I want to read off some of these statistics that are happening right now. Short sample size. We're looking at, you know, a handful of tournaments, maybe 6 in the wraparound. But strokes gained off the tee is 29th. That's a huge improvement for Siwoo. If there was a weakness in his game, I think he would lose strokes off the tee. Not a spectacular driver of the golf ball when it comes to PGA Tour standards, right? Yep. The approach game, he's 99th, which is okay. Around the green, 11. That's always been his you know, strength. I mean, he's magic around the greens, but his putter is 8th. I think he's becoming a better putter as well. I see notable improvement off the tee. I see notable improvement with the putter. And I want to ask you this. You know, we both know Claude very well. Of course, he did a lot of stuff at the Golf Channel. You were there for many, many years. I was there for some. And Claude, I mean, let's face it. He was in the shadow of his dad, Butch Harmon, who is probably the greatest teacher of professionals of all time. And Claude comes out. He's helping his dad. His first guy that I think Claude really did a great job with was Brooks Koepka, you know, from his time on the European Tour over to the PGA Tour. And we know what Brooks has done in major championships. I think this is now another guy that Claude can put his stamp on. You know, in Siwoo Kim, I think he's done a really good job. I think when Butch guys win, we note Butch and we appreciate Butch. I think when Sean Foley's guys win, we note Sean, we appreciate Sean. I don't feel like we quite do the same with Claude for various reasons. How do you see it?
No, I think you make a very good point. I think because of, you know, the presence of Butch's aura, if any player had an association with him, even though he doesn't get on the road anymore and he rarely has his eyes on these players, you kind of default the credit to him. If one of the players who worked with him at any point does win. And with Claude's there day in and day out. And this, you know, you mentioned teaching. I've always considered, you know, and it may be semantical, but I think that the Butch is the greatest coach that the professional game has ever known, because he's a mind manipulator. And there are players that he has worked with that need that, whether it's going to the whip or giving him a sugar cube. And Claude has had to inherit that to a degree with Dustin Johnson, with Brooks Koepka, now with the 25-year-old guy. And you alluded to some of Siwoo's stats and where he's improved. I mean, he was 136 in greens hit regulation last season. He was 127th in strokes gained tee to green. And you mentioned his putter. He was outside the top 120 in his putting. So I think Claude is finding his own footing. And I think that as we go forward in this year, that his players, if they do win, he should, and I think he will get more credit.
Yeah, it's you can see it. 18 months. There's been steady improvement. And I think throughout the game, the approach game maybe is what it is, but the driver and the putter, I mean, those are two good bookends. Get it out there with some length and accuracy and make some putts. You can do some damage on the PGA Tour, and you can clearly see with Siwoo down the stretch. Young man's not scared. I mean, he is in control. I mean, he took driver off the deck, for crying out loud, on Sunday of the back nine. I was like, what in the world?
Yeah,
that takes some courage.
It does. We actually saw Phil early in the week hit driver off the deck. He had a very good shot. He didn't wind up making birdie on that hole. Danielle Kang tried driver off the deck early in her final round. And I'll tell you another thing about Siwoo. They dropped anchor on him late in that round. He had to wait an awful long time when he's in a good rhythm. And that is another sign of somebody. He dealt with something that he's not accustomed to dealing with. It probably caused some discomfort, and he managed it, which will serve him well going forward.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch him now moving forward. 3 wins, age of 25. Been doing it a long time. Turned pro at 17, for crying out loud. So we'll see if he can keep his success going. Speaking of late Sunday, I got to go the other way now. You're looking, Gary, at the biggest Tony Finau fan in the world too. And I love Tony Finau. I love Boyd Summerhays. I think they're great. But the reality set in. Tony is going the wrong way on late Sunday. I mean, it's one thing to continue to put yourself in that situation. You learn, just a year ago, I have no idea how he didn't win the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Yes, I know Webb made some birdies coming in, but Tony parred the last 5 holes. I mean, you've got to get a birdie or two coming in. Here he is, 1 shot off the lead, comes into 11, the par 5, good drive. I mean, basically drop kicks it left into the water. I mean, you just don't see a tour player hit that shot.
Yep.
And then he misses a 2-foot putt. On top of it, makes bogey. Fast forward to 14, he's 70 yards out in his approach and misses the green. This is not technique. This is nerves. This is him hitting this head on and doing the right thing to try to overcome this. And what I saw, and he's been there a ton of times, as you know. I mean, what I saw on Sunday was he looks like he's going the other way. In fact, when it started to happen, he almost looked like in his face, like, here we go again. It's going to happen again. How do you see it with Finau on late Sunday?
I think that you mentioned the look on his face. Yeah, it's a dangerous game to read body language. I understand that. But his body language, to me, is saying that, oh, here we go again, whether it's somebody shooting nothing on him or here we go again, as you alluded to, the shot he hit with that 2-iron or driving iron, whatever it was. It was a horrendous shot. And I would point to the one he dumped in the water on the par 3 on Saturday. He's got a front right pin, and he hits the ball, 8 feet into the water on the left. So he missed his target. I mean, you're thinking bail right, if anything. This is a thing. This is not every time somebody doing something to him. You mentioned the 5 straight pars. We're talking about a golf course at Waste Management where he's got the par 5 15th. He's got a drivable par 4 and 17. So it wasn't like it was a murderous stretch of holes where he parred in. It's a thing. He's got 35 top 10s. He's got more than twice the number of the next guy, which is Kevin Struman, in terms of since his last win, or the number of top 10s in that stretch without a win. Now that's great production. But you don't want to be, and I and this is not to pile on, but I started calling him Tony 2 Sticks, kind of like Chucky 3 Sticks. All these top 10s make you a lot of money.
Yeah.
But you cannot go every year and represent your country on the United States, whether it's President's Cup or Ryder Cup, leaning on a win in Puerto Rico from 2016. You got to win golf tournaments at some point.
Yeah, it's tough to watch. I just keep waiting. Like, in my mind, I was like watching this tournament, had both TVs going. Footbus is great, right? Football and golf. And I'm a Tony Finau fan. It pains me. I mean, I'm just like, I want him to win so bad. And I'm thinking, you know what? Here we go. 1 shot back. He's going to hit this head on. And then the 11th hole happened. And I'm like, he's going backwards. Like, he's not getting tougher. He's going the other way. At this point. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm not going to say I have the answer, but I think there has to be some reality setting in there in that camp. And like, something's got to change here. We've got to get another voice involved in Tony's head or something to get him to turn the switch here, because it's not about talent. I mean, he's got the talent and the shots. No more excuses. He should have won the waste management. There's no question about it. He should have been in the hunt right there. I don't care. Yes, Cantlay made a run, but he should have been hitting shot for shot with Siwoo down the stretch. Now, if Siwoo hits him one more, okay. But you can't be hitting those kinds of shots when the pressure's on, and then the pressure's off, Gary, and he makes 2 birdies in the last 2 of the last 3 holes.
Yeah, no, and that's, again, you said, there's got to be an answer. Tony's the answer.
Yeah.
And I will use a reference to a really good, bad movie, Days of Thunder. When Cole Trickle blows through the smoke and he's like, I'm back in this, Tony's got to break through the vortex. He has to be the answer. He's got to answer to everybody wondering if he's got the chops to close. And only he can do that. At some point, it's not somebody else shooting nothing on you. You got to be the guy to make 3 birdies in the last 4 holes to win the golf tournament.
Right.
And I, like you, he is dynamic. He is as likable as anybody out there. His story is box office. He's great for the PGA Tour, but he can't be the guy that is leaning on one win almost 5 years ago now.
Yeah. Yep. Well, he's in the field next week at the Farmers Insurance Open. He will be, yeah, certainly. I mean, you know all about Torrey Pines in the South Course, plays long. I mean, you're going to need some length there for sure. So he's going to be one of the favorites. So we'll get to that in a second, because there's a couple names in the field I want to ask you about, but I want to go over to Europe, Abu Dhabi, the HSBC Golf Championship. It was nice to watch that in the morning, and kind of as the European Tour get some tournaments rolling here again. Tyrrell Hatton, 66. This guy is impressive. Number 5 now in the world ranking. Wins by 5 shots. My question to you is, I know you know a lot about Tyrrell, and he's been to Morning Drive a couple times. Over the years. Is this guy number 5 in the world now? Does this guy have the game to go up there and wrestle with DJ for that number 1 spot, you think?
I don't, if you would make the pugilistic analogy, he doesn't have as many knockout punches as DJ does, but he can beat you on points. And I'll tell you something, and I love the Middle East swing on the European Tour. I used to love it. Travis, when we would do Morning Drive, we would be watching these rounds conclude early in the morning. We would follow live. I recall the last 2 years interviewing Lee Westwood off that win that was a surprise win to start last year. The prior year, it was Shane Lowry who kickstarted a season that included that Open Championship win. Tyrrell Hatton can win a major this year. I wouldn't say that Tyrrell Hatton is going to be somebody who will threaten DJ for number 1 in the world, because DJ is, not only does he win once or twice every year, he wins in the best fields, but Tyrrell Hatton is winning in loaded fields. That's his 4th Rolex Series win. Top heavy fields, they're paying appearance money. They get some top Americans. They had Justin Thomas this week. I'll tell you the thing that impressed me among the things that he already does exceptionally well. He's a great putter, and he makes putts when he needs to make putts. Is that he has sneaky length. He was playing with Rory, and he took lines similar to what Rory was taking, and he has got pop in his bat. So if you look at his stats last year, his first season really playing what you would consider for a European a semi-robust American schedule, where he had, pretty respectable number of starts and stats. He was good in every category. The guy is an irritant as well. He's going to be a pain in the ass in the Ryder Cup. You can count on that. He's a top 5, 8, 10 player. He's not going anywhere.
He's got no weaknesses. I can remember in 2017, he was there, and I interviewed him in the simulator, and we were standing there talking before we came on. So 2017, it was right after he won the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship.
Which he's won twice.
He's won twice. That was the second time he won it, I think. Can't recall if it was the first or second year. Anyway, he was there, and we had a long chat. And at the time, I just remember we were doing a little research on him. He was one of the best putters in the world at that time, and he still is. His strength has always been his putter. He is, He's on my short list for best putters in the world for sure. I think since that time, he has steadily improved every phase of his game. I think he's a much better. I think he's gotten longer, to your point, and I think his approach game is really much more polished now. So on tour, if your approach game is top shelf and you're that good of a putter, you're going to go. And now you put a little length on top of that. I'm with you. He's not DJ, ammunition, but not surprised to see him in the top 5. And he passed Rory now. Rory's down to 7, who had the lead going in on Sunday. Let me ask you this, Gary. Rory, to me, I tweeted this out. He looked focused to me on Saturday, more than I've seen him in a long time. He looked engaged, looked in shape. He looked like he wanted to be there and was going. I was like, this is Rory. This is the Rory I want to see. And we didn't see that last year after COVID. I mean, he had a lot going on. So,
yep.
But then he comes out on Sunday, shoots even, and gets lapped by Terrell. So do you look at this for Rory? Good week, put a lot of good rounds together, or is this a step back with his round on Sunday, do you feel?
I think Sunday, even though his win rate with 54-hole leads is very good over the course of his career, I look at a player of his ilk. If he's within a shot or two and he shoots even or one over, that's a dubious round. I thought yesterday was another dubious round for him. I go back to last year when he's right there at Riviera, shot 73 in the final round, finishes tied for 5th. Yep. Right there at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, has a chance to win there for the second time, shoots 76, ties for 5th again. That was during that whole rash of when he was finishing in the top 5 in every event. And it's hard to poke holes in top 5s, but I think you can. When you climb to the rare air that he has, and we all look at him as one of the 2 to 3 best players in the world, week in and week out, he has either a hole, which is a soft bogey, or he has a round, which is a soft round on Sunday. And this is somebody who, he's going to win every year. He should win more. I mean, I'm greedy about him.
Yeah.
Travis, I think he should win more.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. He's just, God, his ball striking looks loose to me. When you think of Rory, what goes is up. He had a bad putting week, right? Or a bad putting day. But it's his ball striking that looks, just like it gets a little loose. And then he can't quite piece it back together. And pretty soon he's, and it happens on Sunday. So, he hit the ball nicely on Saturday, beautifully. The wedges look better, approach game. And then Sunday, he just looks kind of off kilter with the swing. Rory's got to win with his ball striking. I mean, he does. He has got to take advantage of that length, and the approach game's got to be on point. And when it goes, he just seems like he can't mend it back together.
But here's the other thing, and I agree with you on that. But this is when you've got to round out your game, and you've also got to do something that I think people have questioned to some degree. I don't question his effort, but grit. If you don't have the ball striking, piece together something that may look like 73 and turn it into 70. Win with small ball. I remember when he got to world number 1 for the first time. He won the Honda in 2012, and he hit some really good greenside bunker shots. Tiger had shot 62 and posted, and he had a lean on getting up and down 2 or 3 times in the last 5 holes. Those things, they stand out. They may not look glossy, but that separates you from being a guy who may win 1 time to winning 3 times.
Yep.
From you being 4th in the world to being first in the world. And I'll say one last thing about the scoring. If you think that we're, making this stuff up, last year on the PGA Tour, he was 1st in first round scoring average. He was 81st in final round scoring average. Rory McIlroy should not be 81st in final round scoring average.
No, hence he's moved now to the 8th now in the World Golf Rankings. I mean, that's probably the biggest reason why, right? I mean, he just continues to, where these other guys are excelling, like a Terrell Hatton on a Sunday, and they're moving past him. I want to go to the ladies' game here real quick before we go to the Farmers Insurance. Kind of a neat event right on your doorstep there in Orlando, the Diamond Resorts. Tournament of Champions. And I got to tell you, I was really pulling for Jessica Korda. I was happy that she got her 6th win on the LPGA Tour. She shot 60 on Saturday. I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, 60 is like nothing. I mean, as impressive as Patrick Cantlay's 61, and I watched all of that. Korda goes one better and shoots 60. You could see, Gary, because Nelly finished 3rd, her sister, and then Daniel Kang, who's playing incredible golf, finished 2nd. Really cool to see those 3 up there atop the leaderboard. But Jessica gets her first win in 3 years. It meant a lot to her to capture that, and she played some great golf.
She did, and you talked about this gap in winning in this gap, her sister has been in her ascension, and there's nobody who is a bigger fan of Nelly than Jessica. But come on, I mean, there are rivalries, then there are sibling rivalries.
Yeah.
And that win was monstrous for Jessica. I remember a couple of years ago when Brant Snedeker shot 59 at Wyndham, and he said that if I don't go on and win this golf tournament, then the 59 is not going to be for anything. And Jessica, I don't think was going to say necessarily that, but of all people, the person that saw it front and center was Larry Fitzgerald, who I know, even though he's a rival from a division rival, I know you're a huge fan of him. He said, and I quote, "That's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life in sports."
Wow.
He didn't say golf. He said in sports, and whether he was caught up in the moment or not, I think it's cool that Larry Fitzgerald is invested in golf the way that the way that he is. I think it's great that he was there to see it. But if you think about the Korda sisters and Danielle Kang, you know who I think benefits most from them getting a lot of attention? Lexi Thompson, who used to carry the mantle of American golf. And I think she did it in an uncomfortable way, not by on purpose. I just don't think it's of her making to be the voice of American golf. I think it will serve her well to not have to carry the flag as much. And now you got 4 Americans who legitimately can say, yeah, we're top 10 players. And whether they get bounced in and out, here, there, or throughout the year, doesn't matter. They're legit. Nelly, Jessica, Danielle, and Lexi, who's a proven winner, that they can say that we are among the 10 to 15 best players in the world.
Yeah, I agree. And since Jessica's win, to your point, Nelly had won 3 times in between that. So, so here's Nelly going up, and Jessica finally gets back in the winner's circle. So, yeah, it's neat to see. It's a fun event. I really enjoy watching that event, and hope that that'll get back to fans next year, and hopefully we'll have some fans before that. And rumor has it, Waste Management, which is after the Farmers Insurance, will have some fans, limited capacity, of course. But there will be some fans at Waste Management. We're not going to see the kind of atmosphere that we've seen in years past, but I think there's some steps being taken now. All right, can we do 2,000 a day to 4,000 to 8,000, and let's kind of slowly ramp this thing up. So hopefully, fingers crossed, things go well at the Waste Management. But before that, I want to ask you here: Farmers Insurance Open next week. Torrey Pines, no Tiger, of course. As we're going to have to wait on him, but it does sound good that he will be back for the Masters. Pretty good field here, though. Of course, the U.S. Open is going to be there later in the year on the South Course. They'll play the South Course 3 times and the North Course once. South Course, big boy golf course. I mean, this is 7,700 yards, and you better bring it to the South Course. Jordan Spieth back in the field. First time we're going to see him. Butch or no Butch, I don't know. Who knows what's going on in his camp right now? But what are we going to see, Gary, from Mr. Spieth coming out at the Farmers Insurance Open, and just maybe project a little bit beyond?
I think it will remain one of the most unanswerable questions in golf, because you can't really necessarily give an answer that is definitive. You can maybe give good guesses. But I can tell you this. I took it upon myself, and this goes back to the prior season when we were, all out there a fair amount, and we're watching a fair amount of golf. And when he started that stretch of not winning, which began in the aftermath of the 2017 Open Championship, I'm an enormous fan of his. I find him to be more than just a curious case. I find him to be a fascinating study, whether he's right or this period of where he hasn't been nearly as right. And I think the thing that plagues him the most is the thing you start every hole with, and that is a teeing ground. I think that he is an intuitive individual. I think he plays with intuition and he plays with feel. And I think he's got a problem on the tee. And I think that, if you give him a hanging lie, if you give him a ball, I'll give you an example. I followed him for every shot he struck in the second round of the Players 2 years ago. And on the 15th hole, he hit a shot to a back right pin to about 10 feet. He made the putt for birdie. And he started on the back nine. He was walking from 18 green to one tee for his second nine. And I was walking in advance of his group. And I never make contact with players when I'm following them. It's just an OCD thing.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I was about 25 yards in front of him. And he was behind me, and there was nobody in between us. So we were inside the rope line. Mm-hmm. And he said, Gary, and I turned around. I said, hey, how you doing? He goes, well, if I can do this for 9 more holes, I'll be doing pretty good. And I said, well, you hit some good shots out there. That second on 15. He said, I was in a divot. And it kind of struck me like, if you give him a problem to solve, that it is an unusual problem.
Yeah.
A hanging lie, a limb overhead, a ball in a divot, he'll figure it out. I think a teeing ground, thoughts creep into his head, Travis. I know I'm doing dime store psychoanalysis, but his driving statistics bear it out. He can't drive it in the fairway.
No, that's the problem for sure. He gets the low left going, right?
Yes.
Off the tee, and man, you start doing that, then the big block is coming soon. I mean, it's coming very soon. And
look at his right rough tendency. Look at his left rough tendency to amplify your point in a quantitative point of view. If you look at left and right tendency, he's at the bottom in both. So if you hit the shrimp, you're then going to hit the block.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's coming. Those two go together, as you know. Yep. I mean, it's especially with the ball teed up. That's where really shows. It's where it really shows his face. Gosh, I've spent so much time on this and thought about it. If I'm being completely honest with myself, I just don't think he's handled it well in the last year, like in the way that he's gone about it. I just like this whole Butch thing. It's like, just go see Butch. Like, you know what I'm saying at this point? Just, you got to cut the tie to some degree. You have seen this through and what's happened on the other side. Cameron and him have had a great run of golf. Great run. Can't take that away.
More than half of his life.
But this is 3 years, Gary. I mean, it's like, you've got to take control of this and get another opinion and really embrace in that and believe in that and go. And Butch obviously is a trusted mind. There's others that are out there that can help him through this. And I just don't like, I'm working with him. Maybe I'm not. He's consulting, but the team's the same. It's like, come on. I mean, we're not trying to, I think we're protecting egos here and not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. And the reality is Spieth, what he's been doing hasn't been working. It's not working. And Butch can help him with this. And I think he needs to embrace that, or whoever it is, and go with it. I'm curious to see if he comes out hitting a cut off with the driver. I get the feeling, and I don't know this, but I just get the feeling that Spieth wants to draw it off the tee. But I feel like he needs to obviously be trying to hit more fades off the tee. And I think there's a little bit of this going on over the years. I don't know that. It's just me. It just feels that way. So I'm curious.
I want to get what is your thought? See, I think when players who are really good, who have some unorthodox mannerisms, I like that myself. Mm-hmm. When you look at him and you look at his footwork and you look at his grip and how weak his left hand is, and if you look at his and again, you see more players. Tyrrell Hatton's a prime example of that. The left arm is bent at impact with the elbow pointed. You hope toward the target. I always liked that in him. Is there something that has gone to where you look at him, whether it is at setup, at the top, at impact, it looks discernibly different than it did 4 or 5 years ago?
I'll send you a picture when we're done from his peak playing 4 or 5 years ago when he was the guy, to a very recent video at the top, and you will see the face is definitely more closed now than it was. I mean, he's definitely more. He's always been that way, but he's definitely more that way now. The face is more closed than it used to be. And then I think in addition to that, we know the path is definitely more to the right. I mean, that's how you get the blocks and the hook. So it's like, okay, those two together, how do we match that up more? Can you work around the face? Is it too shut, or do you need to go in there and maybe give the left wrist a little more support at the top? That's tricky, and it'd be hard to make that assessment on the outside looking in. But I do think you can get the path working more to left. I mean, there's things that are very easy to do and straightforward, and there's no one better at it than Butch to get a player to start fading the ball efficiently. He did it for Dustin Johnson. I think he helped Jimmy Walker that way as well.
Jimmy will confirm that as well.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like, just embrace it. Go, you know what I'm saying? Go do that and get the ball in play. But I think it's a distance issue with him too. And he wants to draw it. I don't know. It's just, it still feels too messy for me. We're 3 years in. It just still feels too messy. It should be more clear cut at this point. Here we go. I hope he comes out and he sees it. Golf misses him. And I think, you get the driver in play, he's going to go. He can still score.
Yeah, I think that golf misses him. I think TV executives miss him. He had something. He had he had something that was traction with people. People would walk into grow rooms, and because he was so habitually contending week in and week out, and because he carried the sled in major championship golf, really for all of 2015, into 2016, and then he wins the Open in 2017. And just one last thing about, why so much attention is paid to him. When he won the Open in 2017, he was going to Quail Hollow all of a sudden with a chance to complete the career Grand Slam before he was 25 years of age. And he has not only not won a major, he hadn't won a golf tournament since then. If you look at the 4 players in the last 25 years who have won 4 majors or more, it's Els, Phil, Rory, and Tiger. The least number of production in terms of wins was Els with 5 in the aftermath of that 4th major championship win. And we all thought he was going to do that. We all thought he was going to do that. So look, I am curious as hell every round he plays. And you can tell, you watch social media, there's a Spieth meter in golf Twitter, whether he gets off to a good start, whether he plays a good round, if he has a dubious hole and he makes a double. It's a roller coaster ride. It's the Spieth coaster. Seriously.
Yeah, it is. It is. You're right. And I think the needle moves as much with him as it does DJ. I really do.
I agree.
No one's Tiger. We know that.
No.
And then you got the Rory effect a little bit, but then I think DJ and Spieth are the same. I think they both, and most would say no, DJ's way. I don't know. I think
when Spieth is right.
Yeah.
When Spieth is right, I think he has even more of an effect on the general public than DJ does. That's my opinion.
Yeah, his last top 10 was the Schwab, the first event back from COVID.
Yeah.
June 14th. That was his last top 10.
That's a happy place for him.
Yeah.
And not to take anything away from him. 2 years ago, I walked with Brian Bateman a couple rounds, and that was when he was on pace to have made the most feet of putts of anybody, by a wide margin. He was actually approaching the record. He's important. I think DeChambeau is vitally important because of how polarizing he is.
Yeah, you start thinking about these things when you wake up and you see Tiger, going under for, pinched nerve again. You just start, my mind, that's where it starts going, is like the first person I think about is Spieth. It really is. And I'm like, God, we need to get Spieth back. We need Spieth, because he is top 3 in this sport, popularity and moves the needle. So
we've seen it. This is not, well, if he does it, this might happen. No, he has done it, and this is what did happen. Yeah. So we know that the proof is there. And I thought Eamon Lynch wrote a really good article in Golf Week about, hey, you better start preparing for this life after.
This 2017, my goodness, I'm looking at it right now, all his tournaments. I mean, it is just incredible. I mean, not just the major championships. In 17, he won the Open, of course, but he won the Travelers in June before that.
Made the bunker shot, and everyone see. Think about how that bunker shot was re-aired on SportsCenter 8 zillion times.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. I mean, screenshot this. This is like Tiger S this year.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, when you go wire to wire in the Masters, that means that you're getting the most attention of anybody in the most popular golf tournament in the world for not one day, for 4 days. And I remember joking with Damon Hack. He made birdie on 9 on Thursday, and I texted him and I wrote, "It's over." Now I was joking, but that is actually when he took the lead. It was 3:47 in the afternoon on that Thursday. He never relinquished the lead, and it was a 4-day commercial for Under Armour and for him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The site that I look at, it shows you strokes gain in every category, every tournament. And, if it's green, it's positive. If it's red, it's negative. And it's fascinating. I'm just scrolling through, and 17, there's just a whole lot of green everywhere, right?
Yep.
And then you keep going up to 18, whole lot of green. The most red, believe it or not, in some of the tournaments is in putting. I mean, his strokes gain off the tee, green, green, green. Strokes gain approach, green, green. I mean, it's, And then about the middle of 18, you start seeing a little red, a little bit more of red. We're getting into 19, more of red, a lot more of, it's like you can just see it's starting to fall apart. So what is that? Better part of 2.5 years. That's kind of where we're at with this. So yeah, it's going to be, I'm fascinated, to watch him. Here I am sitting here. The guy hasn't done nothing in 2.5 years, and I'm sitting here talking about him and waiting to watch him play at the Farmers Insurance.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, you're looking at these stats, and I can just think about when I was starting to accrue. I've got 18 rounds of his in a little leather-bound notebook of me walking every step. And some of them I just watched on television, West Coast events. He was a shot out of the lead on Saturday at Pebble Beach in 2019. And he hit a shrimp off the tee, made double, and proceeded to make another double coming in and wound up finishing outside the top 30. And then he goes on to Riviera, same thing. He's set up going into the weekend. And remember, he was having all of these really dubious high rounds on Saturday after he was either in the top 10 or top 15 going into the weekend. And that was kind of the story of 2019. So all of these seasons have these really unfortunate themes that are associated with them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But I can't wait to watch him.
I know he's a fascinating character. He really is. Yeah, he really is. Well, Gary, we could talk golf all day. Probably. Yeah. And I know you're busy, and I appreciate you coming on and talking some golf with me, and we'll do it again for sure.
I'd love to, for sure, bud. My friend.
All right, buddy. Have a good week.
Thanks. You too.